Morning everyone. In this video, we'll read the extract from the Prelude by William Wordsworth. We'll briefly discuss the story of the poem, and then we'll look at a couple of possible interpretations and meanings of the poem. I'll put a link below for the slides if you want them. Now let's get started by reading the poem. Extract from the Prelude, William Wordsworth. One summer evening, led by her, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cove, its usual home. Straight I unloosed her chain and stepping in pushed from the shore. It was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure, nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on, leaving behind us still on either side small circles glittering idly in the moon, until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. But now, like one who rose, proud of his skill to reach a chosen point with an unswerving line, I fixed my view upon the summit of a craggy ridge, the horizon's utmost boundary. Far above was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. She was an elfin pinnace. Lustily I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. When from behind that craggy steep, till then the horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct upreared its head. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature the grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed, with purpose of its own and measured motion like a living thing strode after me. With trembling oars I turned, and through the silent water stole my way back to the covert of the willow tree. There in a mooring place I left my bark, and through the meadows homeward went, in grave and serious mood. But after I had seen that spectacle, for many days, my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. Over my thoughts there hung a darkness, call it solitude or blank desertion. No familiar shapes remained, no pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky, no colours of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men, move slowly through the mind by day, and were a trouble to my dreams. So what's the story in the poem? Well, the poem has extract in the title because it's an extract from a giant autobiographical poem that Wordsworth wrote. So we know that the poem is a story from Wordsworth's younger days. He tells a story about how he finds a boat tied to a tree on a lake in the Lake District. And thinking nothing of it, he decides to steal the boat and take it for a row on the lake. And as he's rowing, he's thinking about how beautiful nature is and how picturesque the Lake District is. Almost perfect. He even starts bragging about how good he is at this rowing business. But then he sees a ridge, a sort of mountain, and it's huge. And he's intimidated by it. It really scares him. So he turns the boat around and starts rowing back to shore. And the whole time he feels like he's being chased. He's terrified. And that event stays on his mind. It's one of those life-changing moments that sort of seems insignificant to anyone else, but for him, it changed the way that he saw nature and how he felt about nature. He realizes that nature isn't just beautiful, it can be dangerous too, and we need to respect it more than we actually do. And after his ordeal, he says that when he thinks back, he doesn't think about the trees and the sky or the water or the beauty. He thinks about the huge and mighty forms, and these trouble him and haunt his dreams. Now, if you find these kinds of videos useful, click the like button, click the subscribe button. Not only will it help the channel grow, it'll help the video move up the rankings in YouTube's algorithms, meaning more people could be helped by the video and the content of the channel. And it also lets me know what sort of videos people actually find useful so that I can make more of them. I can't tell you how much liking and subscribing videos make such a big difference to YouTube channels. Right, back to the analysis. So, what does it all mean? Well, it's impossible to know for certain. We can't exactly call Wordsworth up and ask him. And all of us will see this poem in different ways. But we can make some creative, educated guesses. Maybe the message is about how powerless humans are in comparison to nature. I mean, we think that we've got control over nature, but we really don't. It definitely controls us. There are some clear links to other poems such as Ozymandias here. Could it be a comment on time? Maybe he realises that the mountain has been there for millions of years and will continue to be there for millions of years after the speakers died. Now, even though we get caught up thinking everything that we've got going on in our lives is super important, a human life is tiny and insignificant when compared to the constant march of time and nature. Could it be about the power of imagination and internal conflict caused by guilt? He steals the boat, and then his mind starts playing tricks on him until he does the right thing and takes the stolen boat back to the shore. Maybe it's to do with his arrogance or pride. He starts getting quite cocky while he's rowing the stolen boat. He feels in control, but then starts to realise that nature is actually the one who's in control, and this teaches him a lesson in overconfidence. Or could it be a message that is as true today as it was back then when it was written? We need to respect nature more, because nature has the power to destroy us. Now, this would make the message of the poem relevant to modern day society due to issues such as climate change and pollution and renewable energy. As beautiful as nature is, we should fear it a little more than we do. We should respect it more than we do. Or maybe nature will end up teaching us a lesson, just like it taught a young William Wordsworth here. Now, there are a bunch of different messages that you could take from this poem. You could look at some of the sexual language in the poem and come to the conclusion that it's a statement about sexual desire. Or maybe take the larger-than-life figure of the mountain as being a metaphor for God and interpret the poem as a religious experience that changed his outlook on the world. Now, this video was done. It was completed. I was about to post it. But then a class came up with an idea about the poem that I hadn't really thought of before, and I just had to add it to this video. Their idea was that of a metaphor. Now, we know that the poem is autobiographical, about Wordsworth's life. So let's imagine for a minute that the boat journey he's on is a metaphor for life's journey. And about halfway through the journey, the speaker sees a huge peak, black and huge. This massive, overwhelming, scary presence that seems to appear from nowhere and dominates his thoughts. Now, my class were arguing that this could be a metaphor for some kind of obstacle in life. The type of problem or fear that turns up and dominates your worldview from time to time. What type of problem or fear? Well, that's up to you to argue in your interpretation of the poem. We could take anything, really. About halfway through his life journey, the speaker sees death on the horizon, and it consumes him. It scares him. Or maybe it's the threat of responsibility that comes from growing up. Think about the most common fears that people have in life. Fear of failure, of rejection, of inadequacy, of loneliness, of uncertainty, of change, of fear itself. Whatever the mountain represents, it's completely up to you, depending on your outlook and how you want to argue your point of view on the poem. I thought it was an interesting idea and one definitely worth mentioning here. Or could there be another message that you've taken from this poem? The great thing about literature is that the different interpretations are endless. If you've got any ideas about the poem or interpretations, let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to see how you interpret the poem. And that's all for today's video. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and happy revising.